I have provisionally named this Mosquitos, Allergies, and the Great Way. I've been in 10 different states in the last 6 weeks, from Southwest deserts to the Deep South, across the Great Plains in the Midwest, and up to the coastal Northwest. And for an avowed homebody with strong opinions about hot weather and chronic pain that's made worse by long car trips and planes and hauling a backpack around, I wish it were different. Each of these departures also meant leaving behind an old, frail, and confused cat, and I don't feel very good about that either. And while all of this travel has been voluntary and completely my choice, it still brings up a lot of feelings of resentment, and I wish it was different. Let's see. So these trips have mostly been to support people that I care about that were going through some difficult circumstances. I cared for somebody that I think of as my sister after her second time around on breast cancer surgery. I sat in a courtroom with an old friend during her brother's murder trial. I watched my elderly father-in-law struggle to walk from a parking lot to the gate of a soccer stadium where he has season tickets and gets great joy from being a wild, screaming, beastly person who's really different than the guy I know saying grace at the dinner table. I showed up for twin nieces who were graduating high school, and their father wasn't at the ceremony, and that was hard for them and for him and for me, knowing I was there instead. And my next 2 trips are going to be working with veterans who are homeless and active military about to be deployed for service in a politically unstable world, and they don't know where they're going to be sent, and they don't know if they're going to return home. And all of them, no doubt, wish their circumstances were different, and I wish it were different for them. But the reality of life is that most of it is spent adjusting to how it is. And even when when things do go as we hope, that perfect situation never lasts, and we regret that we were not able to hold on a little bit longer to a sunset, a cool breeze, a favorite pair of shoes, our health, a profound sense of connection. And it leaves us longing and wishing it were different. We all quite naturally want to avoid pain and are drawn toward what provides pleasure. This attraction and aversion occupies much of our mental activity and guides our behavior. Partially because we're sitting here in this building, I wanted to share some writing from Pema Chodron, who is a teacher, or was a teacher, in the Shambhala lineage. And she writes really beautiful about exactly these kinds of challenges. If you haven't dipped into her books yet, I highly recommend spending time with them. The Wisdom of No Escape, and Practicing Peace in Times of War, and Start Where You Are some of my favorite, very, very favorite books. Let's see. She reminds us that when we become so concerned about our worries, pains, limitations, desires, and fears, we are blind to the beauty of existence. All we feel by being caught up like this is misery, as well as an enormous resentment about life in general. So all the things I'm frustrated about, angered by, saddened by, this stuff is the path. I can get very caught up in my thoughts and my sense of rightness and how I think things should be. And I need to frequently remind myself that the things that seem like obstacles are the path. And that it takes bumping into these experiences to remind me that this is not random or accidental. I have very consciously chosen to walk this exact path. For something like 30 years, I've dedicated my intentions, my study, and my practice to the Buddha Dharma. I've made vows to follow this path and redirected my intentions, renewing those vows dozens of times, including just yesterday at the Fusatsu ceremony that was part of our weekend session. Pema said, life's work is to wake up and to let the things that enter into the circle wake you up rather than put you to sleep. The only way to do this is to be open, to be curious, and to develop some sense of sympathy for everything that comes along. To get to know its nature and to let it teach you what it will. She goes on saying the biggest obstacle is taking a bigger perspective on life. The biggest obstacle to taking a bigger perspective in life is that our emotions capture and blind us. The more sensitive we become to this, the more we realize that when we start getting angry or denigrating ourselves or craving things in a way that makes us feel miserable, we begin to shut down and shut out. Excuse me. Nope. That's why it's in there. Okay. In her book, No Time to Lose, Pema talks about bodhicitta, a Sanskrit word for the awakening heart that refers to an intense desire to alleviate suffering. On one level, it expresses itself as longing, specifically the heartfelt longing to free oneself from the pain of ignorance and habitual patterns in order to help others do the same. This longing to alleviate suffering in ourselves and in others is the main point. We start close to home. We wish to help those we know and love. But the underlying inspiration is global and all-encompassing. So bodhicitta is sort of mission impossible. On the absolute level, bodhicitta is non-dual wisdom, the vast, unbiased essence of mind. Non-dual wisdom, vast, unbiased essence of mind. Most importantly, it's your mind, it's my mind, and it may seem distant, but it isn't. So this No Time to Lose book is Pema Chodron's perspective on an 8th century Indian text called The Way of the Bodhisattva. For anyone with a connection to Naropa, Shantideva was a student at Nalanda University. That was the ancient school in India that Naropa, that's here in Boulder, was modeled after. And Shantideva composed The Way of the Bodhisattva to remind himself that he could contact his wisdom mind and help it flourish. So the book has chapters describing the wonders of bodhicitta, and it goes on to prepare the mind as if it were preparing soil to plant seeds. He introduces the bodhisattva vows, the 4 vows we chant in our morning services and during retreats. He outlines the path of commitment one uses to help others in life, our vows. And he goes into instructions for how to work skillfully with emotional reactivity and the wildness of our minds. Outlining how to free ourselves from self-absorption in the context of the 6 paramitas, which are basically the way to go beyond the false security of our habitual patterns and relax into the fundamental reality of the unpredictability of our lives. I'm going to say it again. The 6 paramitas are basically the way to go beyond the false sense of security of our habitual patterns and relax into the fundamental reality of the unpredictability of our lives. The way of the Bodhisattva begins with this verse that comes from Nagarjuna. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it not decline, but grow and flourish ever more and more. When I got hold of that, I kept reading it over and over and over again. It's so beautiful. So when I attended this eagerly anticipated session after missing 2 and not having been in retreat in 3 months, which I haven't done in years, I found myself rushing to get to pick up Shoen in time. And when I arrived, I was getting bitten up by mosquitoes, and I have 12 that I've counted mosquito bites on me. I was really uncomfortable with the heat. I was sneezing constantly, trying to keep beat on a Makugyo while sneezing was really hard. It was tricky. I'm allergic to everything going on outdoors this time of year. But there I was, and I find myself forced to consider how I can get beyond the small s self and those quandaries of how I want things to be or expect them to be, and have judgments and disappointment or enthusiasm about how they seem to be briefly and then they change. And every time I go back to looking at how I want things to be and look at who's having those thoughts, whose opinion is this, why do I think that has anything to do with the rest of reality? The answer I keep coming into is it's always about expanding. It's always about creating a bigger container. It's always remembering the vastness that is beyond the limits of my contracted singular experience of this world. And from that view, nothing needs to change. There's room for all of it. Nothing needs to be different. This moment is whole. Vast catastrophe of it, including us as we are today, including what I forgot to bring with me, is all perfect and complete and workable just as it is. So I wanted to try something a little different, and I'm going to scoot the computer back over to Mioshin. I wanted to, I'm still here, I'm just going to keep talking. I wanted to conclude the talk with a song. And I sent Mioshin the recording this afternoon, and he's going to pull it up and put it on Zoom and share it on Zoom, and it'll play through the speaker on the computer, hopefully.
My friends are dead and gone, and I won't be here for long. All those things I have seen, it's like living in a dream, some kind of dream. Go and find yourself a love, get some help from up above. Tie yourself to your friends, you will need them in the end. Gonna need them. Can't inside I live in fear that the time shall disappear. Live in fear shall disappear. Can't you hear me calling, calling from the past? Can't you see you're falling? Nothing is gonna last. All your life you're dreaming, like a hand that points to the moon.
That was written by a friend of mine that used to sit with us when we were over in the labyrinth. His name's Parker Coleman. And I really enjoyed seeing everyone really peacefully sitting here and showing. It's like bopping. And Sandy. I just thought that was a cool fit. And it's a song I love, so I wanted to share it and thought this was something a little different to do.